Aloha, everyone, and Diagwitch, as we say here in Ireland. I am streaming live from Ireland, and I'm excited to share with you this new offering that I've been guided with, which is a sacred energy update on a monthly basis. And I wasn't really going to start until the fall, but we had this tsunami warning and scare in the Hawaiian Islands, and I definitely felt it being a propeller, an activator to just come on and share these inspirations and insights and give you a little energy update that will also offer you some support and insight into ways that you can apply practices to support you in these very intense times. There are many astrological events that are currently occurring. I'm not an astrologer, I don't have the details, but quite a bit going on that is creating a lot of rumble. And one of them being Mercury retrograde, which we all know about. Mercury retrograde is very much an opportunity to revisit, to reflect, to release, and to redirect. So it's very much a time of slowing down and a repeat of old events, old issues and patterns and traumas that come up and have an opportunity to go through deeper healing and deeper awarenesses and greater growth. So, as this tsunami scare has been occurring and is still passing through Hawaii and other regions of the West Coast, I had this great insight, and it, again, was one of the impetuses that really got me to just hop on and share this energy update with you. Is that we're all really facing both man-made as well as natural disasters. We're all being confronted with that. In the Middle East, we've been all witnessing and groping over what is happening to what humans are doing to humans and the horrific events that are occurring there. And then we've been seeing all around the planet these different natural disasters, some of which are questionable whether they're man activated on some way, but whether or not it turns into a natural disaster and could also be related to change, that's also a possibility. But on a whole, the elements and the earth is also activating and rumbling and shaking us up. So both these man-made and natural disasters all have a way of really triggering and um, activating a stress response in us. I have walked through many of these types of disasters. I was actually born into a man made disaster. I was born into a fierce war in Lebanon and was raised and kind of grew up in the earlier years, my formative years, through man made disasters, through war, and actually escaped a man made disaster of war. When I was around 8 or 9 years old with my family. So I very much have witnessed kind of the horrors that humans can do to humans and the horror that that does for a state of safety, a state of rest, the horrors that it can create in your nervous system and in your just sense of rootedness in your sense of connection, whether it be with connection with yourself or connection with others, or just that sense of community, all that being uprooted and really destroyed in matter of, seconds, right? So, and I feel in these times that we are all being tested through these kinds of events. And whether or not you grew up in war, you are being confronted and faced with the effects of war, the effects of man made disasters. And you are being confronted and faced with what are you going to do with it? How are you going to handle it within yourself? And how are you going to respond to it outside of yourself? Some of you may be experiencing it right where you are. You may be living in man made disasters and man made wars. Some of you might be very much connected to it because you have relatives that are in these regions. This has also been my experience in the past few years, and with what happened with Lebanon a couple of years ago and into last year, and just witnessing people that we love, because I still have family members there, going through yet again the horrors that this can activate. And then we've all also been confronted with the effects of natural disasters, whether it has happened to us personally or to people that we love. We've all been affected by the Maui fires, whether we were there or whether we knew someone that was there. All around the world, this was felt. We've all been affected by the recent California fires. We were affected by the floodings that have happened across the US in the past couple of years, and then all across the planet, all the various regions that have been affected through natural disasters. So we're all being on some level shaken up. And the word activated keeps coming up, but it's not so much that we're activated as much as we are, in a sense, rattled. We're all being experiencing a sense of being rattled. And it is definitely hitting that place of our nervous system. Our adrenaline gets rushed, and we can feel the depletion in our adrenals. We can feel the drainage in our physical, mental, and emotional self. And this is just a reality. This is just a natural way of responding to these events that happen on the physical plane. I was recently, a couple of years ago, in Egypt at the time that there was the Gaza, Israel explosion and events that occurred there, the horrific events that occurred there, which occurred October 7th, within a week before I was traveling on a pilgrimage, to an Egypt pilgrimage. And being raised in war and having had that personal experience, for me, my nervous system right away ended up online into that kind of adrenalized fear state, terrorized state. And that was, now 2 years later, in retrospect, a perfect activation of healing for me. An event where I was pulled right into the center. Well, it wasn't into the center, but right next door to the center of horrors that really awakened this underlying current of terrorization that had been imprinted in my nervous system since a young child, and beyond into the nervous system of my heritage. And so unknowingly, I walk into this Egypt pilgrimage where I experience profound activations in these temples and pyramids, and just the awesomeness of being in uh, ancient Egypt and ruins, and experiencing all the various elements of the Hathors and Isis and Horus and Osiris and all the various gods and goddesses and the geometrical patterns of these beautiful creations and the star astrological alignments that we can see through the ways that these temples and pyramids were created. Phenomenal. And at the same time, there was a nervous system rattling in me as I was sensing, as an empath and a sensitive, the horrors that were going on next door. So, concurrently, as there was this incredible elevation and expansive experience connecting to source and connecting to elements of my highest self, my lowest self was also being rattled and activated. And it was like a major push for me to face deep layers of fear, deep layers of terrorization. And on many levels, when I left, I felt a little sense of shame that I wasn't able to experience more of a sense of rootedness and centeredness. I felt that I was much more pulled and launched into state of fear. I was really in a state of the events were accelerating and I was really feeling this desire and need to leave. And it was very much a reactivation for me of the experience of leaving Lebanon in the middle of war where we were being sniped at. And what was so powerful and beautiful about that experience is that it brought it all up to the surface for me. And I really got to face and look at how fear and terrorization have been backdrops to so much of my existence that I was so unconscious around. And definitely during our COVID lockdown years, I felt that initially activate and was definitely faced with that within myself, as we all were. But this event really brought it to a greater surface and really helped me to see the rootedness related to my own childhood and then again to my heritage, to my lineage, and the many, many um, uh, years before and family members before and DNA strands before that have been living and operating in that state of survivalism, in that state of terrorization, in that state of fear. So, flash forward, here we are with this August Sacred Energy update as we are completing July and moving into 8/8, which is this powerful and beautiful peak of Lion's Gate that started on the 26th, 28th of July and ends around August 12th, where there's this beautiful astrological alignment and an opening with the Sirius Stargate and opening up and bringing in rich energy for us to be reactivated and reconnected. And at the same time, as things are up leveling, everything that is underneath, everything that is submerged and still operating at that lower level of survivalism is going to get pushed up. And we saw that happen a few years back with the Maui Fires that hit on that peak of the 8/8. The fires that really reached all across the planet and were really fires of burning through these illusions and burning through these um, uh, constructs that have been created, particularly in the Hawaiian Islands and in Maui, of greed, of um, uh, of overtake, of um, systems that have been created ecologically that have really created dissonance between the flow of water and the connection with our ocean life and our stream life and then also just the um, investor invasion, and that has really created a housing crisis in Hawaii, and not only Hawaii, not only Maui, but really all around the world, right? So, in this horrific disaster that hit Maui, an incredible activation has come out of it, and waves of demonstrations and uh, activism to right what has been wronged, not only in the housing status of Maui, but also in the ecological framework of development on Maui, where there is really such an activism uh, that's just getting started in restructuring the way that our development is occurring so that we are operating in a more ecological, sustainable, harmonized way between the land and the sea and the connection of all of life. So, and in the remembrance that our life as a human is dependent on the life of the earth, of the ocean, and of the beings that dwell in land and sea. So, as we're now being confronted with this tsunami scare on Maui and in Hawaii, and then in the California coast, and then moving out into Japan, and also what might have happened in Russia, there is again this rattling that we're all experiencing that's really activating our nervous system. And it is really shaking us to the core because we've all been facing this. We've all been aware of individuals that have been lost their lives or have lost their homes or have lost so much of their cherished communities through fires, through flooding. So we're all being activated in this core level. Yeah. And these fires and these floodings and fire and water are elements of healing and of transformation. They are elements of creation. Yeah. And when they move into their disastrous, imbalanced state, it is burning and cleansing us at the core as humans. And so we have this opportunity to either relate to these disasters, man made or natural, from that survival, terrorized, fighting state, which is natural to initially activate into. Natural. I've been there so many times. Yeah. And when we hit that place of adrenalized survival, terrorized fear state, we are being challenged, can we move to a greater level? Can we access those tools and that state of awareness where we can actually move beyond that survival, adrenalized, reactive, fear, survival state to a more enlightened, masterful capacity to rise and to grow and to hold a greater field from this place. And so this morning, when I first heard the news about what was occurring and several texts that came through related to Maui and family and friends curious and wondering if we were okay, what came through shortly after was this story of the Magdalenes. The Magdalene community, Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, and the other Magdalenes, which was a whole community, not just Mary Magdalene, the Essene community, after the passing of Jeshua and his reclamation, his remembrance, his resurrection, yeah, they were exiled on a boat with no sails out into the sea. And initially, as they were out there and the sea was quite agitated, they were, as we are as humans. And what a beautiful story to reflect to us that these were masterful humans that had lived a very devotional life and had dedicated themselves to this time that Jeshua and this community lived to really help to bring and anchor that field of love amidst horrors. These masterful beings went into a state of fear and went into a state of survivalism and went into a state of reactivity and began to crying out to God and crying out to Jeshua and Yahweh and Mother Divine for help, for some kind of aid to help them through this exiling that had just occurred for them. And the story goes that there was possibly a sight of Jeshua, or they didn't really quite get any aid as they had hoped, but there was some kind of sign that showed them a sense that Jeshua was with them. And they had a quick awareness that they actually had to pull back their energy and drop deeper into themselves and go inward. And the whole community on this little boat went into silence and went into deep state of self-reflection, self-awareness, inner prayer, and shifted the entire field of the community and then of the sea. And then it rippled out and changed the trajectory of the boat, and it began to drift out. And soon after, land was spotted, and they were docked at Sainte Marie de la Mer, where they experienced refuge. And so when that story came to me, it was such a beautiful remembrance, and I'm sure that my guides brought that to me as reminding me that as these things are happening, we are all being challenged to move past that initial reaction of fear, of survivalism, of reactivity, right? And to access those practices we've all been putting a little bit into or a lot into, those yogic practices, those breath practices, those energy medicine practices. And when I speak of energy medicine, yes, there's some benefit to plant medicine indeed. However, this is a time that we must connect and refine the medicine within and utilize those tools, utilize those practices where we refine our energy channels and we refine our physical body and the marriage of the two, that this will be what will carry us through these times. Yeah. Because when the plant medicine is not available, all that we have is this. All that we have is this. That's it. Yeah. So, in this sacred energy update for this month of August, I want to inspire you as I've been inspired, right, to launch out with these monthly sacred energy updates. I want to inspire you to launch out into cultivating and dedicating yourself to those practices that support you in cultivating your subtle body, your breath, that support you in strengthening your physical body, that support you in strengthening your mental, emotional body, and that support you in activating and connecting and plugging in to your source connection. This is key in our times. It is the guru within. It is the master that you have access to, your direct connection to your intuition, to your knowing, to your source. Yeah, essential. And that's not to say that we aren't also in great need of community and each other and prayer and support and physical actions where we help each other through those disasters or through those challenges. Absolutely not. Those are essential as well. And when we come together in community, when we come together as a group in that energy medicine, right, in that source connection, in that prayerful field, wow, it is magnificent. It is magnificent. So, in this month of August, and as we move into the peak of Lionsgate, I want to invite you to reactivate those various practices of meditation, of nature walking, of forest bathing, of diving into the sea, of dedicating yourself to a morning practice, a yoga, meditative breath work practices. That's what I highly recommend. But for some people, it's walking and meditating as you're walking. For some people, it's going to the gym, whatever it is for you, but that it's a dedicated morning practice where you also spend time in silence and an inner space where you're developing that inner, so that you're not adrenalizing through your yoga practice, because we can adrenalize in our Kundalini yoga and our various other yoga practices. You're not adrenalizing in your cardio, but you're also spending time where you're cultivating and strengthening those energy centers. Yeah. I invite you in this way, in this month, to cultivate. And as part of that, I am going to be offering a free webinar. It is coming up this August. The rough date is going to be August 12th, but you can check back. The links will be below here and also on my website, sacredventures.com. It's going to be a Maui Sacred Journey webinar where I'm going to give you a little taste of what we experience when we gather together on the sacred land of Maui, of Mu, um, known as ancient Lemuria, all of Hawaii and Polynesians, but also Maui, known as the New Age Lemuria. And we really gather together in a powerful and beautiful week where we get to cultivate these practices and we really get to dive into making it fun and juicy. We dive into some Kundalini yoga, into some breath work, into meditation, nature based practices. We really dive into the Hawaiian cultural immersion. We have a kahuna trained Kahu Alalani, who's going to be joining us and giving us a beautiful ceremony, giving us beautiful experience of oli, which is Hawaiian chant, and simple practices to really help to enhance us and bring back into our day-to-day life. And the aloha spirit, which is really a practice, and helping to seed that in you during this week and then help to bring it back to wherever you might go back to. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, we'll steep into a little bit of practice in that webinar as well. So, beautiful ones, I want to keep this short and just let this be a half hour. Again, in this energy update, the emphasis for you is to really cultivate that sacredness within you. And it probably will be part of all of my sacred energy updates. It has been through all of my podcasts that are also here on my channel that I've recorded over the years and took a long break around that. And now I'm being really inspired and guided to come back because it really feels like it's a very powerful time for all of us to really cultivate that sacredness, the sacredness of our body temples, to cultivate the sacredness of our breath, to cultivate the sacredness of our energy body. Yeah. In our various ways that we might utilize, and to really make a commitment to move past whatever it is in your personal world where you're activated into that survival, terrorized, fear, adrenalized state. Yes, you're going to experience that initially, but how can you move past that? Utilize that as an opportunity for deeper healing, deeper clearing, that you might connect and connect to that masterful capacity within yourself, like the Magdalenes, to shift the tides of the ocean, to shift the tide of the air and to move your boat to safety. Yeah. And to land into that new world that we are all co-creating. Mm-hmm. Sending so much aloha, Reiki, blessings, Celtic blessings your way. And I look forward to connecting with you in our next Sacred Energy update, but also in our upcoming webinar and all the various other offerings, which I will link below. Mm-hmm.